All right, read tonight.
Wait a minute. 1, 2, 3.
If you watched the Toenza passport video and felt a flicker of belief before doubt returned, you were not alone. A calm traveller at JFK with a flawless blue document stamped by a country no atlas shows, a vanishing detainee by dawn, then a claim that the Simpsons showed it first in 1994. Tonight, the viral myth meets receipts. Who built the clip, why the cartoon became its crutch, and what the frenzy says about our memory in the age of synthetic media. The woman from nowhere. The first upload did not arrive as a rambling post or a shaky phone recording. It looked like the kind of clip you would expect to see at the end of a late-night newscast. A sober anchor, a tidy studio, a headline that balanced urgency with restraint. The B-roll was even better. Gloved hands turned a passport beneath a desk lamp. The cover was a deep ocean blue with a gold crest that looked convincingly bureaucratic. Republic of Toenza sat above a serial number and a tasteful hologram. It looked like the kind of thing you would hand over to an officer without a second thought. The story followed the familiar arc of airport folklore. Customs officials ran the document through their systems. No country code, no match. The traveller pointed to coordinates in the Pacific. She named a neighbour called Dora. Officers checked the map and found open sea. The report said she was held overnight while specialists examined the passport. By morning, she was gone. No file, no prints, no name. If you have seen enough mystery segments, you know how that beat lands. It seals the story with the kind of neat absence that keeps people talking. Within hours, the clip spread. On TikTok, narrators stitched it with whispers and orchestral swells. On Reddit, users annotated frames with circles and arrows, debating whether the guilloche behind the photo was too regular or exactly right. On X, one thread broke down microprinting and claimed the passport stock looked like polycarbonate. The confidence was contagious. People with no background in security printing spoke like experts because the footage gave them just enough detail to feel included in the work. The human angle pulled others in. What wing at JFK was that interview room? Which sign should have been on the wall? Someone said they recognized the baseboards from a layover. Another swore the fluorescent hum was wrong for that terminal. The clip didn't just invite analysis, it invited imagination. Each pause in the footage asked viewers to fill gaps with their own experience, and many were happy to oblige. Then came the twist that supercharged everything. A carousel appeared claiming the Simpsons predicted the incident in 1994. The stills looked right. Colors, line weight, framing. A woman in a pink blazer handed a passport to a blue uniformed agent. Lisa stood in front of a glowing world map as a red dot pulsed in the North Pacific. A caption named the episode. People who grew up with the show felt the spark of recognition, which sometimes outruns verification. Nostalgia carried the claim across feeds faster than correction could follow. What made the package convincing was restraint. The camera never stayed long enough to betray seams. The anchor's copy avoided wild language. The passport never filled the frame. That balance kept viewers inside the moment and let memory do the rest. The video did not just offer a story, it offered a role. Anyone could be the first to notice the detail that proved the case. The internet loses its mind. Once a narrative taps into the right circuits, amplification handles itself. The Toenza clip plugged into 3 at once. Airport mysteries, where procedure meets the uncanny. Disappearance stories, where absence masquerades as evidence. And The Simpsons, a show that functions like a shared library of cultural shorthand. With those connected, the current surged. Compilation channels cut between the newscast and the alleged cartoon frames as if television had flipped inputs. TikTok lined up voiceovers that explained the case with soothing certainty. The cadence felt familiar, a promise of clarity, a tease of danger, a concluding line that left room for more. It was content engineered to be repeated. Hashtags compressed the myth into tokens people could carry. Number sign Toenza collected speculation about geography. Number glitch in the Matrix layered it with cosmic drama. Number sign Simpsons predicted. It hauled nostalgia into the room as a witness. Under each tag, the same pattern took hold. Commenters declared that the hologram could not be faked. Others insisted they remembered the episode. Some said their cousin worked at JFK and had heard whispers. The point was not proof. The point was participation. Mutations followed. A supposed customs memo appeared written in the bland tone of an internal report, but its metadata gave it away. The timestamp format did not belong to the stated era. The font had not existed when the memo was allegedly typed. A still photo of the traveller seated at a grey table circulated, but a reverse image search led to a stock catalogue. None of this slowed the spread. The crowd had already accepted the frame and now curated its content. The Simpsons carousel acted like an accelerant. For many, the show is a memory palace. People can recall jokes from childhood episodes with almost physical fidelity. Over decades, websites have gathered moments where the show's gags coincided with later news. Smartwatches, Trump on an escalator, a merger that reshaped media. Those coincidences became a single story about a prophetic cartoon. Once that story exists, it becomes easy to tack on the next claim. As hours turned to days, a cottage industry formed around the clip. Meme pages set Toenza alongside famous cartographic errors and phantom islands to give it historical flavor. The diffusion mattered. At that point, the story was no longer a claim to verify or debunk. It was a participatory world. People defended the experience as much as the facts. Debunking does not win with volume. It wins with patience and artifacts. Media forensics hobbyists pulled the anchor's audio into analysis and found artifacts common to text-to-speech systems. Breaths repeated at identical intervals. High-frequency consonants flattened in the same way across different lines. The voice sounded human because it used human samples, but the rhythm told it. Others tracked reflections in the studio background. A ticker visible in the faux glass desk moved out of sync with the main screen as the camera dollied, a tell that the set was a composite. A security badge changed orientation between cuts. The same room plant cast shadows at different angles within the same scene. None of this was loud. It was a steady accumulation of slippages that added up to a verdict. Designers traced the passport's inner layout to a 3D portfolio where a hobbyist had posted fictional passports months earlier. The Toenza pages matched down to a stray curl in the guilloche. In the hologram, analysts noticed a looped highlight that returned at a regular interval. Real diffractive films shimmer with unpredictable microstructure. Loops belong to render engines, not laminates. Then someone did the simplest thing. They watched the named Simpsons episode. Season 6, episode 10, is a story about Homer and Grandpa selling a tonic while old resentments surface. No airports, no passports, no blinking map. The viral stills were clever pastiches, trained on the show's palette and staging. They fooled, not because they were perfect, but because they fit. The fraud leaned on familiarity and let memory take the last step. Skeptics collected these finds into threads with links and screenshots. They avoided triumphal language. They showed their work. Some viewers changed their minds, many did not. When a story has given you a jolt, correction can feel like theft. People often store the contradiction in a mental drawer labeled "Debate Ongoing" and keep the feeling. A small group filed public records requests for any relevant incident at JFK during the stated window. None surfaced. Airport authorities issued a calm note reminding journalists that international arrivals are logged and that detainees are never released without documentation. Such statements lack drama, but they matter. Boring systems leave paper. When there is no paper, misdirection is a better explanation than a miracle. The Simpsons effect. Why did a cartoon become the scaffolding for a forged report? Because The Simpsons functions like a shared diary. After more than 700 episodes, the show has stamped versions of almost everything. Elections, celebrity scandals, tech gadgets, corporate takeovers, failed inventions, world-ending panics, even side jokes about obscure agencies that most people never think about. If you search long enough, you can almost always find a seed that can be framed as foresight. Once someone pulls those seeds out of their original scenes and edits them into a neat list, the misses vanish and a clean storyline appears. The prediction effect is not supernatural. It is a byproduct of volume and memory. The writers have thrown out thousands of jokes across decades. Many are topical, some are absurd. A small fraction eventually brushes up against real events years later, simply because there is so much material. When those lucky overlaps are collected and presented as a timeline, they stop looking like coincidence and start feeling like prophecy. Years later, that timeline is what people remember, not the messy context that surrounded each joke. It feels intentional, because our minds would rather carry a tidy story than admit how much of life is statistical noise. There is another layer sitting underneath that logic. Nostalgia softens vigilance. People who grew up with the show, or absorbed it in syndication, or watched it in the background of their homes for years, have muscle memory for its colors, framing, timing, posture, even the way a character's eyes move when they are worried. That visual language became a shorthand for, this is clever, but also honest. For a lot of viewers, The Simpsons has always been allowed to say the quiet part out loud, long before anyone else would. So when that language appears next to a new mystery, a switch flips. It stops feeling like rumor and starts feeling like insight. The fraudsters behind the Toenza package did not have to write a joke or build a plot that made sense. They only had to borrow the style of something people have already decided to trust. That is where the danger lives. None of this makes the show at fault. If anything, it proves how deeply it has soaked into cultural cognition. The problem is the loop between aesthetics and belief. A forged passport can borrow the gloss and texture of real security paper to slip past suspicion in a 5-second glance. A fake newscast can borrow the cadence, posture, and microphone tone of an evening anchor to impersonate authority. An AI still can borrow the warmth of a long-running animated sitcom to impersonate cultural memory. The package succeeds, not because any individual component is flawless, but because all of the components echo something familiar enough to feel safe. People are not just tricked by lies. They are comforted into lowering their guard. There is a second consequence. Corrections rarely travel as far as the thrill. The first version of a claim spreads like a spark in dry air. The debunk, which is slower and careful and full of boring details like font analysis and timecode checks, moves through a smaller circle and usually arrives later. By the time someone says, "This Simpsons frame was generated last week by an image model and never aired in 1994, a large portion of the audience has already stored the fake frame as a memory. From that point on, they will not repeat, "I saw a convincing fake." They will repeat, "I remember that episode." That is how rewired memory starts. The answer is not finger-pointing. The answer is preemptive literacy. That means showing how these edits are made before the next hoax lands, not after. It means teaching how a compilation can cherry-pick hits and bury misses. It means walking people through how an AI frame can be conjured in one prompt, how you can spot soft edges in hands, how you can catch warped background text, how you can notice that a background map has coastlines that do not match Earth. It is not about telling people to stop loving the show. It is about letting them keep that attachment while also seeing how easily someone else can weaponize it. If nostalgia can be used to slip a lie past your guard, are you willing to adjust how you trust without losing what you love? The new shape of myth. Toenza did not invent a genre. It refreshed an old legend with modern reach. Long before social media, the man from Todd's story offered almost the same shape. A traveler appears at an airport in Japan with a passport from a country no one can locate. Immigration officers confront him. He is confused and annoyed because, to him, Tored is real. He is held overnight while officials contact ministries and embassies. By the next morning, he is gone. His room is empty. His documents are gone. His file is gone. The authorities are left with embarrassment and silence. There is no proof it ever happened. Most historians treat it as folklore. But the story lived because it did something irresistible. It turned rigid bureaucracy into a ghost story. It said even the border, that most official edge of a nation, can be rattled by something reality cannot explain. Toenza is the same outline, rebuilt with sharper tools. You no longer need a tape recorder and a rumor. You can stage an entire broadcast. You can create an anchor with the exact vocal delivery of a metropolitan newsroom. You can render a passport with textured covers, UV-style overlays, and believable visa stamps, then flash it in front of a fake customs officer under convincing overhead lighting. You can add scrolling tickers, noise beds, and the kind of lower third graphics people associate with breaking news. You can color grade the footage to look like institutional CCTV. You can mimic the lens distortion of a dome camera. You can seed it across platforms that are tuned to reward confident storytelling and punish hesitation. In other words, you can industrialize folklore. And you can do it from a laptop. That does not mean we are helpless or doomed to drown in believable forgeries forever. It means our habits have to evolve at the same speed as the tools. Wonder still matters. Curiosity still matters. We are not supposed to live in a world where everything magical gets swatted down before it can breathe. The answer is not to become numb. The answer is to build guardrails that let wonder survive without being turned into bait. Those guardrails are basic, and they are teachable. Lean in, but pause first. Ask to see the full episode, not just the still. Follow an image back to the first account that posted it, and look at what else that account uploads. Watch for looped highlights in reflections, because real reflections do not loop. Check whether the timestamp format matches known formats for the agency being named. Check whether the badge on a supposed officer changes shape between cuts. Listen to breaths. AI voices often forget to breathe like real lungs. These are not glamorous steps. They are not dramatic. They are not cinematic. But they give dignity back to curiosity, because they let you engage the mystery without surrendering to it. The appetite that Toenza tapped is not a defect. It is the same hunger that pushes people to explore caves, to build telescopes, to write science fiction, to search census archives for lost towns, to chase signals from deep space, to paint maps that say, "Here be dragons," because a blank corner of the world feels intolerable. The task now is to feed that hunger with work that respects it. If a forged passport lights that spark, an archive of real border anomalies can carry it further. If an AI Simpsons frame stirs that nostalgic awe, an audio commentary from the actual writers can deepen it instead of exploiting it. The world is still strange in ways that are fully real. Polar skies sing with radio light. Deep ocean vents sustain entire forests of life without sunlight. Entire villages have vanished from paper records for reasons that are not paranormal, but still chilling. We do not actually need a hoax for awe. We only need to be shown where the real edges still are. If myths can now be built on demand and launched at scale, are we ready to update how we separate story from evidence without killing our taste for the unknown? What Toenza really exposed? Strip away the spectacle, and two vulnerabilities remain. The first is technical. At consumer resolution, eyes and ears can be persuaded by composites made with mid-range tools. The second is social. Memories are collaborative. When enough people perform belief together, that belief becomes a background condition others must address. Neither vulnerability is fatal. Both require habits. On the technical side, the steps are clear. Source the earliest upload. Check whether the newsroom exists independent of the clip. Compare the passport layout to known templates. Listen for repeating breaths. Watch reflections for loops. Confirm the plot of the named episode. These checks do not kill curiosity. They give it boundaries. On the social side, the work is harder because it asks us to interrupt a pleasurable ritual. Sharing a wild story feels like belonging. The fix is not to ban the impulse, but to make room for a second impulse that values the breakdown as much as the reveal. In the Toenza saga, some of the most satisfying work came from artists and analysts who deconstructed the package frame by frame. They showed how the composite was assembled and turned demystification into its own genre. That is a healthier nostalgia, one based on learning together rather than betting together. In the months after the rush, the clip did not disappear. It lingered in corners, ready to resurface when some coincidence could be bent to fit. A satellite caught a stray reflection on the Pacific, and someone invoked the name. A cargo ship pinged off course, and the label returned. Toenza became shorthand for a feeling, the wish that the map still hides a corner where the rules break. That wish is not dangerous by itself. It becomes dangerous when it overrides the part of us that knows how to check. The Simpsons did not predict Toenza. The internet predicted that many of us would rather trust a familiar pattern than sit with an uncomfortable correction. That is the lesson worth keeping. Reality still wins when we give it enough time and attention. The goal is not to drain the color from the world. It is to keep the color from painting over the lines that matter. The passport was art. The broadcast was a composite. The Simpsons frames were fan edits, built to feel inevitable. The feeling they produced was genuine, which is why the story traveled so far so fast. Curiosity does not need to be retired. It needs better company. If this breakdown helped you keep your footing, like the video, subscribe for more deep dives into viral mysteries, and turn on notifications so you do not miss the next investigation.